Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Midshipman Ben Page. We warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Philip Frederick Edward Schuler, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors, and students on behalf of the following schools. From Western Australia, we have Mika Thara School of the Air and Mandaring Christian School. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is birth by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every state advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Philip Schuler. Philip Frederick Edward Schuler was born in 1889 to Gottlieb Frederick Schuler, who would later become the editor of the Age newspaper and Sarah Schuler. Philip Schuler grew up in Hawthorn and attended Melbourne Grammar, after which he became a junior reporter for the Age. He served in the militia, initially with the 5th Battalion, before transferring to the Australian Intelligence Corps in 1911. In 1912, he was assigned to the Australian Service Corps. He was also a member of the Melbourne Savage Club, a gentlemen's club dedicated to the arts, literature and science. Schuler particularly enjoyed the arts, particularly music. He was often a part of plays staged at the club. It was here he acquired the nickname Peter, for his similarity in nature to J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. Though meant as a compliment, it was a name he did not much care for. When the First World War began, Schuler volunteered to be the Age's correspondent to the AIF, in which capacity he would photograph, document and report on the campaigns in which Australian troops were involved. Schuler embarked from Melbourne aboard the transporter Vito, the flagship of the AIF's first convoy, on the 21st of October. The ship carried General William Bridges and the 1st Division headquarters, amongst other troops. It was on board that he met and befriended Charles Bean, Australia's official war correspondent. After a brief stop in Albany, the first convoy made for Colombo. En route, HMAS Sydney destroyed the German raiding ship Emden, and Philip was the first journalist to interview Emden's captain, Karl von Mueller. Following several months in Egypt, the majority of the AIF moved to Lemnos in preparation for the Gallipoli campaign. Schuler went too, but was arrested as a spy by British authorities. He was quickly released. After returning to Egypt and following the commencement of the Gallipoli campaign, Schuler wrote damning criticisms of the medical conditions the Australian wounded were being subjected to during the opening stages of the campaign. His reporting caused a furor in Australia. After petitioning Sir Ian Hamilton, Schuler was allowed to travel to Gallipoli. He arrived on the 20th of July and was soon in the thick of the action. He reported on the August offensive by closely following attacking Australian troops at Lone Pine, seeing for himself their efforts to break the stalemate. Schuler also cared for Bean, following the latter's wounding on the 6th of August. Bean admired his colleagues' courage and energy, and Bean's account of Lone Pine in his official history drew on Schuler's account. Schuler's sensitive and insightful reporting brought wide condemnation of the British handling of the Gallipoli campaign. He not only reported on the war at Gallipoli, but also took hundreds of images which are held here at the memorial. These images provide a unique view of the Gallipoli campaign. Schuler returned to Australia in early 1916 and produced the book Australia in Arms and the photo essay The Battlefield's of Anzac. Both were published that same year to critical acclaim, but Schuler wanted to do more. On the 7th of April, Schuler joined the Australian Army Service Corps as a driver. He embarked from Melbourne on the 3rd of June aboard the transport Persic, by which time he had been appointed Lance Corporal. After training in England, he sailed to France in November, arriving on the Western Front during one of the worst European winters on record. Schuler was commissioned as a second lieutenant in February 1917, and on the 5th of June was promoted to lieutenant and transferred to the 868th Company as supply officer. 2 days later, the Battle of Messines began with the detonation of 19 mines under the German front line. Over the next week, Schuler was praised for his courage in keeping the men of the 3rd Division supplied, often under fire from German artillery. On the 23rd of June, Schuler was severely wounded by what Bean called a chance salvo, suffering shrapnel wounds to his face, throat, left arm and right leg. He was taken to the 2nd Casualty Clearing Station. He was visited by his commanding officer shortly afterwards and knew he was dying. He passed on several messages and instructions and died from his wounds about an hour later. Lieutenant Philip Schuler was laid to rest in the Trois Arbres Cemetery at Steenwerk, Belgium. Gottlieb Schuler never got over the death of his only son. He remained as editor of The Age until his death in 1926. Philip Schuler's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Philip Frederick Edward Schuler, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. The going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.